Imagine you need to send a very important letter. Someone offers to deliver it for you, fast, cheap, and reliable. But there is one problem: that person works for someone else. And that someone else does not always like you. Sometimes they are friendly, sometimes they are not. And when things get bad, they might just stop delivering your letters. Now imagine that letter is not just a letter, it is military communication. Emergency signals. The kind of messages that decide whether a country survives a war or not. Would you still trust that delivery person? Europe asked itself this exact question, and the answer was no. Right now, Europe is building its own satellite system called Iris Squared. The full name is Infrastructure for Resilience, Interconnectivity, and Security by Satellite. It will cost 10.6 billion euros. That is a massive amount of money. And here is the part that surprises everyone. SpaceX, the American rocket company owned by Elon Musk, actually offered to launch these satellites. They said, "We can do it. We have the rockets. We are ready." Europe looked at that offer and said, "No, thank you." Instead, Europe chose to use its own European rockets called Ariane 6, and those rockets cost 5 times more than SpaceX's Falcon 9. 5 times. That means if SpaceX would charge $1, Europe is paying $5 to do the same job. So why would any smart organization pay 5 times more for the same result? The answer is not money. The answer is control. Let us go back a few years to understand why Europe made this decision. In February 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. It was one of the biggest military conflicts in Europe since World War II, and just hours before Russian tanks started moving, something happened in space. Russia launched a cyber attack. They targeted a satellite network called Viasat. This satellite network was being used by Ukraine's military for communication. When the attack hit, Ukraine's military communications went dark. Commanders could not talk to their soldiers. It was chaos. Then SpaceX stepped in. Elon Musk activated Starlink, his satellite internet service, over Ukraine. Suddenly, Ukrainian soldiers had internet again. They could communicate, they could coordinate. Starlink became one of the most important tools in Ukraine's defense. The whole world watched this happen, and European leaders watched too, but they saw something different from what most people saw. Yes, Starlink helped Ukraine, that was good, but European leaders thought about something deeper. What if Elon Musk had decided not to help? What if he had said, "This is not my problem, I am turning Starlink off"? That thought scared Europe more than anything else. Because here is the truth. Elon Musk is one person. He makes his own decisions. He has his own opinions about politics. He has his own relationships with different governments and different leaders. He is not elected by Europeans. He is not answerable to Europeans. He does not have to do what Europe wants. And there was actually a moment during the Ukraine war where Musk restricted Starlink in certain areas near Crimea, preventing Ukrainian drones from using it during a planned military operation. He made that decision himself. One man, one decision. It affected the course of a war. Now imagine European governments depending on Starlink for their own military and emergency communications. Imagine a crisis hits. And imagine Elon Musk decides, for whatever reason, to limit or cut the service. Europe would be completely powerless. That is not a risk Europe is willing to take anymore. Jean-Pierre Diry, who is the main coordinator for Iris Squared, said something very direct. He said that faced with the United States' desire to place an economic stranglehold on Europe, Europe needs autonomy. He used the words economic stranglehold. Think about that for a second. This is not some small politician. This is Europe's own space coordinator. And he is describing American technology dominance as a stranglehold. That word tells you everything about how Europe now sees its relationship with American technology. And Iris Squared is Europe's way of breaking free from that grip. The satellite constellation will have 290 satellites. They will orbit in both low and medium Earth orbit. The plan is to have the system fully working between 2029 and 2030. It will provide secure communications for European government agencies, military, emergency services, critical infrastructure. The total budget is 10.6 billion euros. 6.5 billion euros comes from public European funds. The rest comes from a group of private companies, including some of the biggest names in European aerospace and technology. Companies like Airbus Defence and Space, Deutsche Telekom, SES, and Telsat are all part of this project. This is not a small experiment. This is a full commitment, and Iris Squared is not the only piece of this puzzle. There is another system that most people already use every single day without knowing it. It is called Galileo. You know, GPS, right? The navigation system that tells you how to get from one place to another. Almost everyone on the planet uses it. It is in your phone, it is in your car, it is in delivery trucks, airplanes, ships, and farming equipment. But GPS is not owned by the public. It is owned and operated by the United States Department of Defense. The American military controls it, and while they let the whole world use it for free, they can change that at any time. They can reduce accuracy. They can turn it off for certain regions. They can do whatever they want with it because it belongs to them. Europe decided that depending on a US military system for navigation is a serious risk. So Europe built Galileo. Galileo is Europe's own global navigation satellite system. It works just like GPS, but Europe owns it and controls it. And now Europe is making it mandatory. Since March 2022, every smartphone sold in the European Union must include Galileo support. Not optional, mandatory. If you want to sell a phone in Europe, your phone must work with Galileo. Since October 2021, electronic road toll systems in Europe must be compatible with Galileo. Emergency call systems in cars and phones must use Galileo to provide location information. And Galileo is actually more accurate than GPS in some ways. It can pinpoint a location to within 20 centimeters. That level of accuracy is useful for self-driving cars, precision farming, drone deliveries, and many other advanced technologies. But the main reason Europe is pushing Galileo is not accuracy, it is ownership. Europe wants a navigation system that no American president can ever turn off. Now let us talk about something very important. Why is all of this happening right now? Why is Europe suddenly so serious about building its own technology infrastructure? The honest answer is one word: Trump. Donald Trump's return to power changed everything for Europe. His policies have been unpredictable. His attitude toward European allies has been aggressive. He has used tariffs as weapons. He has threatened to pull back American military support. He has made it very clear that America, under his leadership, puts America first, and everyone else needs to figure out their own problems. For Europe, this was a wake-up call. For decades, Europe was comfortable depending on American systems. GPS was free and worked great, so why build your own? Starlink was fast and affordable, so why spend more on European satellites? American military protection was reliable, so why increase defense spending? Trump changed the math completely. When you depend on a friend who is always reliable, dependence is fine. But when that friend starts using your dependence against you, suddenly that dependence becomes a trap. Europe looked at what Trump was doing. They watched him threaten tariffs on European goods. They watched him make unpredictable foreign policy decisions. They watched him destabilize relationships that had been stable for decades. And they decided that the cost of dependence was now higher than the cost of building alternatives, even if those alternatives are more expensive. And it is not just satellites. The same shift is happening in energy too. After Trump's aggressive foreign policy decisions caused disruptions in global oil markets, European demand for solar panels jumped by 27%. Germany's demand for solar installations doubled in a very short time. People across Europe, even apartment dwellers with small balconies, started installing plug-and-play solar panels. Electric vehicle purchases are rising sharply across Europe. Germany now gets 63% of its electricity from renewable sources. Europe is decoupling from American fossil fuel markets at the same time it is decoupling from American satellite infrastructure. The logic is the same in both cases. Dependence creates vulnerability. Vulnerability can be exploited, so eliminate the dependence. Now let us look at where Iris Squared actually stands today, because this is not just a plan on paper, it is already moving. In January 2026, the EU announced that a bridge program called GovSatcom became officially operational. This is a temporary system that connects existing satellites from 5 EU member states into one coordinated network. It is the stepping stone to Iris Squared. In March 2026, Cyprus became the first country to use GovSatcom operationally. There are reports that this may be connected to the ongoing military situation involving Iran. On March 26, 2026, just days ago, Norway and Iceland signed agreements to join both GovSatcom and Iris Squared. The network is growing. More countries are joining. The momentum is real. Andreas Kabelius, who is the European Commissioner for Defense and Space, presented the full plan at the 2026 European Space Conference. His message was simple and clear. Europe is committed to this. It is going to happen. The political will is there. Now let us talk about the rockets, because this is one of the most interesting parts of the story. Europe's plan to launch Iris Squared depends on Ariane 6, a rocket built by the French company Ariane Space. Right now, Ariane 6 has a backlog of 30 confirmed launches waiting. That shows there is real demand for it. But Ariane 6 has a significant weakness compared to SpaceX's Falcon 9. It is not reusable. SpaceX lands its rockets and flies them again. This makes Falcon 9 dramatically cheaper. Ariane 6 is used once and that is it. This is why the cost difference is so large. 5 times more expensive is not an exaggeration. It is the reality. European officials know this. They are not pretending Ariane 6 is cheaper or better than Falcon 9. They know it costs more, and they are choosing to use it anyway because they know that if SpaceX controls the launches, then Europe has not really escaped American dependency. It has just moved the dependency from satellite operation to rocket launches. One EU official put it simply. He said that if Europe does not have access to its own rockets and its own ability to reach space, then the whole satellite project is pointless, because then you are still depending on someone else to get your satellites into orbit. Europe is paying more for its rockets because owning the full system, from the rocket to the satellite to the communications network, is the only way to have true independence. Public subsidies will help keep Ariane 6 competitive enough to do the job. Europe has accepted this cost as part of its larger strategy. Let us take a moment and think about the big picture here. Because what is happening in Europe right now is genuinely historic. For decades, the United States built a world where American infrastructure was the foundation everything else was built on. GPS so that everyone could navigate, the dollar so that everyone could trade, American military bases so that everyone could feel protected, American tech companies providing communications, data, and connectivity. This system gave America enormous power, not just military power, but the kind of quiet, invisible power that comes from being the one everyone depends on. If you control the infrastructure, you control the leverage. And for a long time, this worked well for everyone. America provided the infrastructure. The world used it. It was a good deal on both sides. But power, when it is concentrated in one place, eventually gets misused, and Trump's presidency made that misuse very visible, very fast. Tariff threats, unpredictable alliances, wars that shocked global markets, one tech billionaire making decisions that affected the military strategy of entire countries. Europe saw all of this and understood that the old deal was no longer reliable. So Europe started building its own infrastructure, piece by piece, satellite by satellite. And here is the deep irony that no one should miss. Trump's policies were supposed to make America stronger, to put America first, to use American power to get better deals for Americans. But instead, those policies are doing something very different. They are pushing Europe, China, and other major powers to build alternatives to American systems. Every time America uses its infrastructure dominance as a weapon, it gives other countries a stronger reason to stop depending on American infrastructure. China is building its own payment systems, its own satellite networks, its own navigation system called Beidou. Europe is building Iris Squared and making Galileo mandatory. The Gulf countries are exploring alternatives to the petrodollar system. Each one of these alternatives reduces American leverage a little bit more. The more Trump uses American power aggressively, the faster the world builds systems that do not need America at all. It is a slow process. It will take years, but it is already happening. And Iris Squared is one of the clearest examples. So let us bring this all the way back to where we started. SpaceX offered to launch Europe's satellites. Fast rockets, proven technology, significantly cheaper, a reasonable offer on the surface. Europe said no. Europe chose to pay 5 times more, to use slower, less proven rockets, to depend on European technology that still needs to prove itself. Because the alternative, cheap American launches, means that if relations break down, if political winds shift, if one man in America makes a decision Europe does not like, Europe's satellite network could be stuck on the ground, unable to launch, unable to operate, completely dependent on a foreign company owned by one foreign billionaire. That is not a satellite system, that is a hostage situation. And Europe decided it would rather pay more and be free than pay less and be trapped. Iris Squared will be operational by 2029 or 2030. Galileo is already working and already mandatory. The European space strategy is not a dream anymore. It is a construction project, and it is moving fast. The world is changing. The age when America was the automatic default choice for critical infrastructure is ending, not because America is weak, but because America has shown that it is willing to use that infrastructure as a weapon. And once people know that a tool can be used against them, they stop depending on that tool. Europe has learned this lesson, and now it is building its own tools, one satellite at a time.